Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Let's rush ahead now. We really wanted to talk today somewhat about Rupert Murdoch. Is the attack on Rupert Murdoch the prelude to some kind of a color revolution in the Anglo-American world? This is hard to imagine because the idea that you could get demonstrations of Arab proportions in London, not so easy, although it is possible, and it can be done if you stoke these things in the right way. Obviously, Rupert Murdoch, an ogre, down he goes in the wonderful tradition of Robert Maxwell and Conrad Black, both of them ending up badly, either dead under mysterious circumstances or jailed. Murdoch now seems to be heading in that direction. But the possibility of a color revolution reminds us that when you have a color revolution, you come out of it worse. Same thing with Watergate in the United States. Is this a general Watergating of the entire British government system? The British never had a Watergate in quite the way that the U.S. did. The goal of this, in any case, if it is being orchestrated, will be to come out of it with the British government being even weaker vis-a-vis the City of London and the banks than it is right now. But we got to get back to the financial questions, because here is the opportunity to act. Again, my premise is simply this: either the national states will put Wall Street, the hedge funds, the zombie bankers, and the rating agencies out of business, bankrupt, declare them Chapter 7, forced liquidation. Not even Chapter 11, but Chapter 7 forced liquidation. Wipe out the derivatives, shut down the zombie bankers, end too big to fail, or that cartel of interests, Wall Street, the zombie banks, the hedge funds, the ratings agencies, will inevitably attempt to bankrupt and destroy the national states. That's a recipe for neo-feudalism and for a new dark age. Again, after Attila the Hun, but not even with the church there to comfort you. You'll have no comfort at all. Now, the resistance against this in Germany takes a peculiar form. People are nostalgic for the D-Mark, and they don't like giving money. They think a lot of people in the German political sphere choose to regard this as a bailout of Greece. I've already explained it's not a bailout of Greece; it's a bailout of Deutsche Bank and Commerzbank and the rest of them. So forget the Greeks. They don't get it. They never see a penny of this. But we also have the kind of legal attack that the euro is illegal, that the bailout is illegal. Well, I would say the bailout is folly and should not be done. Whether the euro is illegal, this is now a slightly different question. But let's always frame this from the point of view of saying, illegal or not is one thing. Formal, legal, fine, important question. But above that is a political judgment of what is required for human civilization to persist. And that may not be the same thing. It's easy to say, United States Constitution, totally illegal, because the Constitutional Convention had been tasked with the amendment of the Articles of Confederation, not the creation of a new constitution. So the whole thing is illegal, if you want to be, frankly, a legal crank. So let's not be legal cranks. Let's always have a political perspective based on a political judgment with an organizing component. How do you intervene? Is it giving you a way to come in and do something? Now, we have a parade of German professors who are telling us that it's all illegal. Yeah, the euro is illegal. I would add, sure, the Depression is illegal. Derivatives were illegal and should be illegal. And what it comes down to is you've got to defend yourself against speculation. And this did not just start yesterday. The need for Italy to ban credit default swaps, or the way that I supported Schäuble in his limited attack on credit default swaps last spring, this reflects the fact that you cannot have stable finances anymore when you've got this massive derivatives-fueled speculative force that is ravaging the world. And this didn't start yesterday. People say, we want to go back to the D-Mark. Well, remember what it was when you had the D-Mark. The D-Mark has been a target of speculation. This is a la hausse, right, to speculating on an up valuation, a revaluation, again, an up valuation. That has been like this since about 1967. You remember that when there was the D-Mark, when they were part of the Bretton Woods parities in 1968 and in the following years from 1968 to 1973-74, there was constant speculative attacks on the D-Mark with the goal of driving it up. That's bad for Germany because if the currency goes so far up, the export business becomes impossible. You price yourself out of the world market with a super heavy D-Mark. So what did the governments do? This goes back to Brandt. It goes back to the early Helmut Schmidt. They tried to create a European joint float. This was originally known as the European snake. The snake meant that the D-Mark and the Dutch florin and the Danish crown and the Belgian franc, the ones that are absolutely integrated, right, where the whole production process simply ignores the national borders, that this formed itself into a snake. That was then the snake in the tunnel, right? There were some currencies in Europe that had a very close coordination with the D-Mark, others less so. So we went from the snake to the snake in the tunnel to the European rate mechanism. This was a grid of fixed parities with the currencies trying to remain independent. This was attacked by Soros and others in 1992 in September, and the pound was forced out. So what you've had the entire time is a constant pattern of these speculative attacks. The euro does not grow out of nothing. You can say, well, it's the fantasy of these globalized Bilderberger elites that are running Europe, of the various Barrosos and Rompuys and these characters. Yeah, up to a point it is, but it's also rooted in what I'm saying now, that the entire experience of the D-Mark is that if the D-Mark is standing there alone and naked with no currencies associated with it, the speculative attack is obviously to buy it long and to sell short these other currencies, be it the franc or the lira or the Belgian franc or whatever it is. So the question of European economic integration and the question of a common currency, these are closely linked. And let us now repeat what Helmut Schmidt learned, and which he has repeated in a recent interview. If you go back to the D-Mark, the first thing that will happen to you is the world speculative community will focus on the D-Mark as the great chance for speculation a la hausse, to drive it up, to drive it into the ionosphere, to drive it into intergalactic space. The entire German export economy will be ruined, and whatever modest recovery in German exports we've had will be completely wrecked. And by the same token, if you have the independent drachma, that will be driven down towards the center of the earth, the descent into Orcus Hades and the underworld, with no music by Offenbach to accompany it. That will be that fate. So I would say to the people who criticize the euro from this point of view, you will have to fight speculation sooner or later. Why not fight speculation from the platform of the euro? The difference being, if the euro is 1 trillion euros a day of turnover, it's harder to attack that frontally. And indeed, the idea dinner at Mones Crespi with Goldman and the rest of them, they saw you can't just attack frontally the euro. What you've got to do is find the weak flanks. You've got to attack the Greek bond market, the Portuguese bond market. That is done with credit default swaps. Why not start your agitation with an attack on the speculators instead of demanding the dismantling of the euro and thereby becoming part of the Soros, Goldman Sachs, hedge fund chorus? Why do you lend your voice to the project of people who are your enemies? Why do you allow yourself to somehow end up on the same line of attack as your enemies? Why not say you need a political perspective here, not just declaring everything illegal? You can declare everything illegal and you're still in a depression. Where's the plan to get out of the depression? The plan is fight the speculators, shut down the zombie banks, seize control of the European Central and force them to issue 0% euro credit to create the 40 million jobs. That's the the immediate imperative. So fight the speculators. You're going to have to fight them sooner or later. Why not fight them now? And maybe Italy can teach a lesson to some of these other countries, especially from the point of view of Michele Ruggiero, who has been delving into the ratings agencies. We'll see you next week on World Crisis Radio, Tarpley.net, Webster G. Tarpley Twitter feed. See you next week.